and therefore define the subsequent work patterns for their teams as well. Of course, there are other resources. Some of the very interesting resources that we have provided to our managers is something which is called home safety guidelines. Also, being comfy at work booklet. Changing your work environment. How do you have a conversation if a staff has a request for changing an work environment? Working safely with computers anywhere, because compliance and data security is absolutely important for us in NatWest. So those are the tools we have ensured that we provide our managers the resources, we train them on it, and they are able to cascade it further. And while we do all of this, we ensure that the hybrid culture do not breed an in-group and an out-group, and therefore have enough collaboration in office. So nowadays, we actually make fun and we say, we don't need an offsite, we need an offsite format of a collaboration on site. And that's what we have tried to do as well. So I'm going to do the last slide now. Absolutely the last slide, yeah. So for me, in my personal opinion, I feel every organization who will embrace this human-centered approach to design their workplaces, to design their work schedule, to also design a thoughtful in-person collaboration will be best positioned to thrive in the next 20 years. But of course, it's an experiment and we are yet to see the results and the outcome of that. With that, I'm going to hand over to you, Dalri.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm sure a lot of people would have been taking notes on some of the practices that you shared. And when we come to the question and answer session towards the end of the webinar, I'll have a few more things that I'd like to deep dive into. I'd like to now invite Dr. Vishwanath Joshi, VJ, as he is more fondly called to us, to share his experience of hybrid with so many offices, so many employees over. What are some of the things that you have done, VJ, to make this work for Hexaware?
Thank you for the opportunity, Dalreen, and Tanya, thanks a lot. It was wonderful listening to you. I've made some notes myself. Like you rightly said, nobody has answers, everybody is experimenting, and it's no different with Hexaware and with me as the Chief People Officer for Hexaware globally. However, let me begin by sharing with you a very interesting conversation that I had about a month back when I was traveling back from US. No, this was while I was going to the US. And we had an unscheduled stop for fueling in Barcelona. Was not anticipated at all, 2.5 hours. And I had a long flight further to Mexico. So I was waiting in the lounge, nothing more to do really. Of course, was drowsy. And the best way I could really stay awake and make sure I don't miss my next flight was to have a conversation. So as a student of phenomenology, which is some of you would know, it's a study of experiences. So what you really try and do in phenomenology is to study experiences and understand what these experiences mean from the person who's experiencing those. So I got an opportunity. Somebody came and sat next to me in the lounge and we started a conversation. I learned in less than 3 minutes that this person was an IT professional. Of course, he was traveling on project to Mexico, and I started asking questions. And the only question that I had to ask this person is, so how has your experience been last 2.5 years? And as you can imagine, after that, I didn't have to ask him a question at all. For the next 2 hours, and I'm not exaggerating even a bit, for the next 2 hours, he was telling me what has been his experience for the last 2.5 years. And he told me about a variety of things. He told me about what are some new hobbies that he has picked up? What are some old hobbies that he has got back to, like gardening? What is the kind of garden that he has set up in his house in Bangalore? He told me about his new interest in learning Southeast Asian cuisines. He told me about the fact that he actually built an entire alumni WhatsApp group of his college mates, engineering college mates, and how every Sunday they connect with each other and have conversations and fun about anything, including going back to their college days. He told me about how his mother was ill for a while and he could spend all the time with her, nursing her back to health. He told me about how he reads storybooks to his 2 kids who are between the age of 5 and 7, etc., etc., etc. And the most interesting part for me at the end of that 2-hour conversation was he didn't speak a word about his work. Now, it really set me thinking, and that was like the 3rd or the 4th instance that prompted me to ask myself, so what have been these 2.5 years been like, where there has been so much of, on one hand, of course, a lot of personal and communal disturbances because of the environment that COVID created. But on the other hand, what's happening in people's lives around us, okay? And these experiences, these recounting, and remember, I didn't really have to provoke him. I didn't ask him any specific question about, hey, so how have you been working? Are you equipped by your company to work from home? Has anybody given you the gyan on security, etc., etc.? Nothing. I didn't have to ask him anything. I just left it for him to tell me, how does he describe those 2.5 years? And his only description was about his life. And that really gets me thinking, even in my role in this large 25,000 people company, what is it that people are thinking about when they think about hybrid work environment? What are they thinking about work now? How do they look at their life and their work together? I'm sure all of us would have read reports and articles, and we would have listened to speakers talking about it in different webinars about work-life balance, employee well-being, etc., etc. And my perspective was more from an individual, and extrapolating that to my 25,000 employees, I'm thinking, what does it mean? What kind of organizations would these people like to work for when they think about their future work lives? And one thing for sure that I'm hearing in my interactions with my own employees, of course, no longer do I go out and interact with other employees except for when I'm traveling or on social occasions. But when I interact with my own employees, there are definitely 3 things that are emerging. Okay? I don't have a presentation, but I'm looking at a cheat sheet, which are some notes that I made to share with you. So there are 3 things which are definitely emerging as important elements of a hybrid work environment. One is expectations on both sides. It's time to get back to the table and talk about, as a company, what do you expect from employees? As Tanya referred to a while back, that look, working from home does not mean working for home. There is a role that you play, there are responsibilities, there are deliverables, etc. And therefore, it's time to get back and talk about, as a company, what do you expect from employees, and give the voice to the employees to talk about what do they expect from the organization. And trust me, at least in my limited experience, employees are telling us all the time what they expect, provided we have a listening ear, provided we have created safe platforms for people to talk about in this new way of life, or the new normal, as we call it fashionably. What do they expect from the company? And we are already seeing the signs in a variety of ways that from a talent perspective, which is really what our struggle is today, right? As companies, from a talent perspective, it's very, very clear writing on the wall. The talent will go where it is invited, which means a great onboarding experience, even if you're doing it on a virtual platform. So the talent will go where it is invited, will perform where it is rewarded. Now think about this. When we were all working in office itself, people had issues about not feeling enough appreciated. People had complaints, and every satisfaction survey, this would come up that I don't feel recognized. Nobody notices the good work that I do. And today we know it's become even more challenging. And that's one of my challenges. And of course, I'll share with you a little bit about how we are trying to deal with it. Not that we have answers all the time, but some experiments we have done at Hexaware. So the second is the talent needs to feel invited. That's where it is going to go. Second, the talent needs to feel rewarded. That is where it is going to perform and will stay where it is respected, which means everything that you and I talk about on this webinar about how do you really make people feel belong to that organization, feel cared for in that organization, and think about it. And I'm sure Dalrine and other friends at Great Place to Work and Great Manager Institute will know, we always talked about demonstrated care. It's not enough just to be caring, you have to demonstrate that care. And that's really where the talent will stay, because it feels cared for, it feels respected. So the talent will go where it is invited, will perform where it is rewarded, and will stay where it feels respected. And therefore, the first aspect to a great hybrid work culture, work environment, is expectation setting. Maybe revisiting those expectations. Yeah, we were taught as students about what is called the psychological contract. It's not a contract that we sign, but it's a contract that is still there. The physical contract hardly gets breached, but when there is a breach of that psychological contract, people actually feel distrusted. So one, expectation. Second is excitement. Now think about this. One of the reasons why people are talking about work, back to work, is it's boring. It's literally boring to work at home all by yourself and yet do a great job. We know this in many businesses. While jobs could be monotonous, it might still be possible to continuously do the same old stuff in the same old ways. But if you're in a business that requires creative thinking, innovation, collaboration, brainstorming with people, coming up with new ideas and solutions, in those kind of businesses and roles, people are already saying, how do we really make this work from home exciting? Therefore, the second dimension of that is excitement, the second E. And the third E, that is easier said than done, is engagement. Somebody really told me a very interesting way of looking at it. She said, what's the difference between company X and company Y? It's just the laptop anyway. So if I can have 3 laptops in front of me of 3 different companies and keep doing the same thing, what difference does it make to my life? It makes no damn difference. Therefore, how do you really create this sense of engagement on a virtual mode is the third very important dimension that, and this is not just a viewpoint, this is something that we are experiencing at Hexaware. So 3 dimensions. One is expectations, second is excitement, third is engagement. So how do we really look at the hybrid work culture or setting up a hybrid work culture? Yeah, we are aware that some companies have been used to this for a very long time with the cultural nuances and the history, but most companies are getting into this, either by choice now or per force or by design of the environment. And therefore, like many companies, we also tried putting a policy framework in place. Yeah, and we worked on it, we worked hard on it, we got a cross-functional group of people together. However, we very soon realized that policies is the last step in creating that work environment. It's not the first step. the first step really is, as a company, you decide what is your people philosophy. Now, again, this might sound theoretical, but the fact of the matter is all management teams, leadership teams in every organization, literally speaking, without exception, are now looking inwards, reflecting and saying, how do we look at the people side of the business anyway? Are we seeing people and just seeing resources? Because these resources then can go anywhere else for a 40 or a 60%, even 100% raise. Therefore, one part is the people philosophy of the organization. How do you look at the people side of the business? How do you talk about the people side of the business? How do you present the people side of the business? What is it that, what's the language that you use about people in the company? And therefore, communicate what is it that people side of the business means to you. Of course, it is business, but what position, what significance do people have in your business? Second is the practices that you have. So how are you going to demonstrate this people side of the business, your philosophy around the people side of the business? And then you come to the third P, which is the policies. So how many hours of working, what allowances, transport arrangement, your shift working, your benefit packages, compensation, allowances, all that stuff, right? Therefore, as an organization, Hexaware has said, let's first define our people philosophy. And we did that almost during the pandemic phase itself, where we revisited, after almost like 28 years of existence, Hexaware revisited its purpose and said, why do we exist as a company? And we said, and we went through the whole OD process, as we call it, of arriving at a purpose statement. And today our purpose statement says, creating smiles through great people and technology. And we said, let's put people as a part of our purpose itself. And let's make it exciting for everyone across the globe. This is cross-cultural, right? There is no culture in the world where smiles don't bring smiles. Therefore, we said creating smiles through great people and technology. Ultimately, we are a technology company. So people and technology and creating smiles is how we define the purpose. And that demonstrates, in a way, to me, that demonstrates our people philosophy. Along with that, more recently, we have adopted an AI philosophy of people. Now, for those of us who believe AI stands for artificial intelligence, in this context, for us, AI stands for all invited, which means that whatever are your preferences, some people want to work from office. Great, welcome. Some people are saying, we want to work from office. Yes, we want to experience the office environment. We want to be there, but 3 days a week, welcome. Some people said, not 3 days a week, because my office is in Chennai. I stay in Tuticorin or I stay in Pondicherry. I can't make it 3 days a week, but I want to make it on important events. I want to attend important team meetings. I want to be there for training programs. I want to be there when Vijay comes to Chennai. Welcome. Fourth categories, people said, I want to work part-time. I'm doing something else. I'm already committed to something else for next 2 years, education, hobby, learning music, whatever it is, but I want to work part-time. We said, welcome. And finally, there is also a group who says, come to office. Are you kidding me? I'm already in Himalayas. I have a nice small place that I've taken for myself in Mussoorie. I'm not going to come to Chennai. Never. Send me work. I'll do a great job. Send it back to you. We said, welcome. So in this continuum of different kinds of people with different preferences, life philosophies, work styles or work patterns, we said we're going to create an opportunity for everyone. And of course, there will be choices that you will have to make and understand the consequences of those choices. That's my job along with my management team, to educate my people and make sure they understand this. So that's really the fundamental approach that as an organization we have taken to create an environment where hybrid working enables us to do a great job for our clients, make sure that as a business we grow and sustain, and third, continue to create, invest, build a culture that's a great place to work. So that's really in a nutshell what Hexaware's approach has been. Of course, there are various practices that we adopted to support this approach, and some of those practices are still evolving. For example, we said, hey, you can't come to office, we will come to your town. And we started a program that is called Hexaware in Your Town, where a group of senior leaders, including from HR, visit the town where a large part of our workforce is present. Maybe they have quote unquote migrated there. We reach there, get them all together with their families, have a good time, but also use that as an opportunity to connect, use that as an opportunity to clarify, use that as an opportunity to answer questions, and make them feel wherever they are, they continue to belong to Hexaware. As I kept saying right since the beginning of the pandemic, as a chief people officer, whenever I had an opportunity to address our employees, one thing that I reminded myself while I was saying this and sharing it with employees, saying, look, social distancing does not have to result into emotional distancing. That's the worst that the pandemic can do if you're an organization that wants to become a great place. So in summary, that's really what we have been doing. We also started with practices, one of which we call a Focus Friday, so that people can come and focus on their work on Fridays, whether they're working from home or they come to our campuses, plan their day and make sure that the Friday time is their time. They plan their work, they finish the work, take time off after 3 o'clock, or not get into any kind of unscheduled meetings. And it's amazing how that's working, because everybody is connected to that. Everybody benefits from it. So managers think 10 times before organizing a meeting on a Friday evening, because they know it's a Focus Friday. So we have given these practices some shape and form so that they can be institutionalized. Okay, and as you can imagine, the role of managers here at Hexaware, like in many companies, I'm sure, has been significant, because finally they are the ones who are delivering this culture on the ground. So a large part of my role and my team's role, recently we did a program for our managers saying you are the key, because in pockets we were getting this feedback that managers have become too transactional in these times, and therefore you are the key, and with the tagline that says empowering managers at Hexaware. That's really another program that supports us in building this culture. So this is just to give you a snapshot of what's been our approach to creating this hybrid work culture, and what are some of the practices that we have adopted to make this happen. Right. That's all from me. Back to you, Dalry.
Thank you, Vijay, and we'll get Tanya back as well. Sometimes I think the 1 hour is not enough. Organizations like yours and NatWest are doing such interesting stuff. We can do whole sessions on the different kind of practices that people are experiencing now. We've got a whole load of questions, as you can imagine, that have come up to us, and I don't know whether we will have time to finish everything, but I'm going to try and see if I can address at least some of the top themes. Vijay, maybe I'm going to start with you, and Tanya, please chime in. I think one of the things that you mentioned, when you were talking, was that it's so important for organizations to listen to their employees, right, as they go about creating a meaningful and an intentional hybrid work environment. What are some of the tools that you all are using to do this? And also, what are you all hearing? So what are some of the top themes you're hearing about how they want to engage in a hybrid space?
Okay, I'll take the second question first, Dal. Two things we are definitely hearing, and I'm saying across the board, we have different cohorts of employees, but by and large, we are hearing two things. One, Obviously, the theme of flexibility is on the top of the mind because people have experienced that in the last few years, and many have experienced the positive effects of this flexibility. One aspect of that flexibility, which is very significant, especially in cities that we operate in, and I'm talking about India, is really the commute. And people have experienced the fact that it's possible to do a great job without spending 2.5 hours one way commuting. And that's added tremendous energy to them. So one is the theme of flexibility. The second is most teams that we have find it easier to conduct business online, which means, for example, and Tanya also talked about Teams. So we use Teams extensively. Every person is on Teams at Hexaware. And it's very easy to quickly ping whoever I want to in the organization, in whichever part of the globe, of course, keeping the time zones sensitivity in mind, and get my work done, get my queries resolved, which not necessarily is the case when you're in a physical work environment. So the ease of doing business, as they call it, and second is flexibility. These are two things that are significantly driving how people look at this environment. So in return, a large part of our tools investment has gone into technology tools, collaboration tools. As I keep telling all the Hexawarians here, and the other day somebody got annoyed on me and saying, I told on a town hall that, hey guys, do you know we have another campus? And somebody got annoyed saying, how can you not tell us? There was no press release and now you're telling us and all that. So I said, look, I'm going to show you that campus. I opened my laptop and I showed him Yammer. That's our community. Said, this is our new campus. This is where we meet. So, you're welcome to meet us here. So that's another very, very important tool for us, which helps collaborate in a very easy manner and in a fun manner.
Yeah,
so
and
we have adopted tools like these to promote collaboration.
Thanks. And Tanya, you also alluded to, using workplace. So what are you all picking up from employees?
The best thing that we are picking up is they've felt for the first time in many years, despite all our efforts to ensure that they feel empowered, through this culture, they felt they are suddenly empowered because they have a choice. They have a choice to execute in terms of the amount of time they will put in, the amount of effort they will put in, the amount of commitment they will put in, and also the outcome that they will derive. So that's something that we have heard, that people are really feeling fulfilled because of that choice. So that's number one. Second thing that we have also heard is we have a tool called Great Place to Work check-in tool. And it actually asks them, it's just a series of questions which helps managers ask them, what are your real motivators, right? How are you spending your time off work that is nourishing you and helping you grow as an individual and be future ready? And we have seen that through this conversation, the amount of learning and development that has happened, and self-investment, not that they were using a NatWest University or NatWest tools, etc. People have gone ahead and invested in skills for themselves, even outside the organization. So that has happened. The third thing that we have seen is, of course, VJ has a very widespread global presence in terms of Hexaware. For us, we are primarily a UK bank and we have presence in India and Poland. But for the first time in many years, people have said that, the boundaries of global and local have actually it's just gone, in a jiffy. We know more about people in 2020, 2021, and we have not even known those colleagues, even if I have joined the company in 2010, and they were all there. We have faces to name, we have worked with them, we share pictures on Facebook at workplace, all of that. So it's emerging as a fun place.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tanya. And I'm going to, one of the questions that has come up again, and I'm going to refer to, what you all do as part of the Great Place to Work practice that you spoke about, is that we're hearing so much about how psychological well-being has definitely taken a beating, right, at work. I was just looking at some data. There is an increase of 252% in the time we spend on online meetings in the last 2 years. 32% increase in chats. 60 minutes average increase in workday timings. 16% more people say they work on weekends. And about 28% are saying we're doing more after standard working hours work, right? It's like an always on kind of a mode for many colleagues. Are there any practices that you all have put in place? Vijay, you spoke about Focus Friday, right? For example, are there some practices that you're making sure, you all are putting in place to make sure, one, that people are able to really then disconnect, and two, also to use like asynchronous modes of work that actually help to build more productivity and drive innovation? So Tanya, would you like to lead?
Yeah, sure. So in fact, I have a slightly different take on it. I feel the issue of mental well-being or illness has always been there. Over the last 2 years, we have started having conversations about it. That is what has changed. And therefore, because we are great with numbers and insights, etc., we have added some numbers around that as well. But the benefit of what happened as an outcome of that is people are acknowledging that they need a mental time off. And therefore, workplaces are also adjusting. So we do some fun things like Vijay mentioned, Focus Friday, we have something called happy hours, right? It is not for alcohol, of course, it is to each their own, but happy hours on Friday that you can take 2 hours completely to yourself, but once in a month, and different teams are looking at it in different way. Also allowing people to do non-video meetings. Honestly, as an organization, we became quite obsessed with this video meetings. So we are now saying that go for a walk and take your call, where you don't have to share a presentation talk. It's a decision meeting, it's a conversation meeting. Please go for a walk and take your call from audio and not sit at your desk and do video, right? So these are some of the things that we have encouraged people, and the leaders are role modeling. When they see that the leader can go out and take a important call while they are walking on the road, and it is absolutely okay for the rest of them to be a part of it, then others follow.
No, I think that's a great point, Tanya, and it's so important for leaders to be able to, when we build all these practices, it's so important for leaders to demonstrate them so that others feel that, it kind of, the say-do ratio works. Vijay, you said something that was very interesting. You said that social distancing has probably led to some amount of emotional distancing. And I think one of the things that we are finding in our data across surveys that we have seen in the last year and a half, is that teams are talking about the lack of camaraderie, the lack of connect. What are ways in which your people managers are being able to rebuild this social capital? And are there some practices that they are using to be able to do this well?
Yes, Dal. So, every year for the last couple of years, Hexaware identifies particularly what we call great managers at Hexaware. Okay. Now, this is a recognition which comes to them as a part of, or rather through a combination of their performance ratings, achievement on their project performance goals, and how have they done on team engagement and building a culture in the team. So these two are put together, and then last year we identified 162 managers who were recognized specifically as great managers at Hexaware. And what we did was, over last 52 weeks, literally speaking, we picked up what we call most valuable practice, MVP, from their set of practices. And every week, one of my team members broadcasted that practice. It could be in form of a short video, or it could be a write-up, or it could be that manager coming and talking about it on a live broadcast. So one practice per week, and we did that with 52, 54 such practices. Now, interestingly, we found there is a pattern. There's a very clear pattern in terms of how these managers in the toughest of the times in the history that we have seen have been able to create a great engagement and deliver on their customer promises. So finally, we had to kind of give that set of practices some shape. So we called it the CARE managers, CARE. What does it stand for? And we looked at all those practices. C stands for connect. These are managers who connected with people in non-work ways. These are managers who made effort, systematic effort, not random effort, but systematic effort to make sure that they're connecting with their team members, not just as resources for the work, but as individuals and their families. One of the managers actually went to all his team members' houses after the last promotion and hand over the promotion letter in front of their family members. And if you look at some of those photographs and videos, they would bring anybody to tears. The second one is Aspire. So these are managers who not only got the work done, but they also focused on the aspirations of their people. Systematic career dialogues, recording that in our PMS, ensuring that their promotions were justified, etc., etc. So they went a little beyond on taking care of the learning and career needs of their team members. R is obvious. It's recognition. In more than one ways, Hexaware provided them a platform called InAwe at the power of H. InAwe is basically a technology platform. We customized it to make sure that all our recognition programs were delivered. We created visibility, all that. And these managers made sure that they use this InAwe platform to the highest potential. And finally, care as care in terms of being empathetic to their team members. And this was obvious when people needed that empathy to take care of their personal needs, especially given the fact that it was peak COVID time. So these are things that we found managers who actually got the recognition as great managers of Hexaware did on a consistent basis. And as I always emphasize, in a systematic manner, not in a random stuff.
And I think that's wonderful, Vijay. Care is, it just says so much also. And the fact that you are recognizing this, right? And creating like this whole Great Managers League,
yes,
in a way. I think there was a follow-up question from someone in the audience that said, what are the criteria you use to pick up what are these MVPs? And it may be quick thoughts on that, and then I'll move to the next question for Tanya.
So these were the practices that we picked up from their team feedback scores, where people actually from their teams, and this is an anonymous survey that happens, and people actually mentioned these practices as distinguishing practices of their managers, because of which they believe that their managers are going above and beyond to keep the team engaged. So we picked up those practices and made them most valuable practices.
Wonderful. And I love the fact that you all, provided so much opportunity for peers to learn from each other, right? Through the 52 weeks of talking about that. Tanya, I think one of the things that we've all kind of been struggling with is inducting new joinees, right? And not inducting in the literal sense. I think it's more about really creating that sense of belongingness, truly welcoming them, making them feel part of the teams. Most of these guys have not seen their manager. They've been hired virtually. They've been onboarded virtually. And we've also noticed, of course, that the highest kind of attrition has happened for people who've joined in the last 2 years, right? When we've looked at that data. Are there some things that you all have done that has worked around, engaging new employees?
So I guess I wouldn't say that it is absolutely revolutionary. I think we did some of the basic things right and consistently, which is to finding ways to demonstrate that we care for them. We enable them to connect, and we connect with them, and we do that consistently. And how do we do that? Because in fact, in our values also, the ability to care for colleagues, business, and climate is a part of one of our values. So therefore, a lot of our conversations that we do within people managers and teams is about caring for their mental, physical, social, financial well-being. So that has helped. Of course, there are inductions that happen virtually. There are special efforts by managers to bring in teams virtually so that they are able to know each other, buddy systems in a virtual mode that happens, and celebrations as well. So it's not different, but ensuring that in all of these practices of connect and care, there is consistency. Something that we have not done before, that we started doing in some pockets, and managers have started doing that within their vertical, is ensuring that the care is demonstrated in birthdays, the care is demonstrated in anniversary celebration, because there are a lot of money that we are saving otherwise. So therefore, why can we not do this? Is a classic case of doing personalized demonstration of care to our colleagues and reach them at home, whether it is small gifts or flowers or chocolates or anything simple. Yeah, a box of chocolate can still bring smile across all generations, like Vijay was saying, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. I know we've run out of time, but I'm going to take one question because it has come repeatedly in the question bank, and it's a tough one. I was debating on whether we should put this out there or not, but I think a lot, we've also seen that as leaders are looking at getting people back to work, and a lot of organizations are saying, we'll come back 3 days, 4 days. There are some employees who are saying, I don't want to do this. And if you make me do this, I'm going to quit. Right? And there is a serious threat of us losing talent if we kind of mandate bringing people back. Any thoughts on how you are managing that, Vijay, Tanya?
So Dal, as I said a while back, we have said all are welcome.
Yeah.
All are invited. But this is not an act of generosity. This is not an act of charity. In that sense, we've said all are welcome. We'll create opportunities. We'll try and do our best to give you all the flexibility. However, there will also have to be education around what can happen and what can't happen. For example, if you are fundamentally in a role that requires innovative thinking and solutioning, and you have to work with the team, then you can't say, I will never come back to office. You can possibly say, I can come back 3 days a week, but you can't say, I have a preference, I'm going to stay at home forever, never come to office, and be in a role that requires innovative thinking and creative working. So our position has been all are welcome. And here is a little playbook that we're going to put out there to educate and inform people of what are the consequences of the choices that they make. However, no direct impact on aspects like compensation and benefits, because that's something that's really hard to kind of bifurcate. But definitely on roles, promotions, opportunities, and that's work in progress, really.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's so important to kind of be very clear on those, guidelines as we roll something like this out. Tanya, any inputs from you on that before we wrap up?
Sure. I just wanted to ensure that obviously, like I mentioned, there is freedom within a framework. So in an organization setup, just like Vijay was saying, that there cannot be absolute freedom to do whatever I want, because of my role and my work and my deliverables deserve a certain expectation and a pattern of work. I need to honor that. So at NatWest, what we have done is we have said, if there are adjustments that you need for your personal circumstances, because of which you're hesitant to come back to work right away, we will support you. We will have that conversation. We will support you, but that will be time bound.
Yeah.
And then after that, you will have to follow what the rest of the team is following, because otherwise it's going to be inconsistent practice and, for the others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very valid point. Thank you, Tanya. I think we've run out of time, and we have, I'm sure everyone else has other meetings to jump on to. But I just want to say a big thank you to both of you. Vijay and Tanya for sharing such wealth of information with our audience today. Like I said, you can have multiple sessions around this and it'll still not be enough. I think, also so many of these practices you will only kind of come to life and you learn from it once it's executed for a period of time, right? So if we do this conversation 6 months down the line, I'm sure there'll be more learnings around this for sure. But once again, thank you so much for this. We have another webinar that's going to happen a few weeks down the line, which will focus on really leadership in hybrid, right? So what can managers do? What are some of the skills that they need to build to manage a hybrid workforce? So yeah, that will be another very interesting conversation. Thank you everyone who joined us on this meeting today, and we hope you found this useful. There's a feedback form in the link. We'd love to have your feedback on this session. It just helps us to make our future conversations better. So thanks everyone and have a lovely evening.